Welcome to episode 3 of The Love Show. We have a real interview finally. And full disclosure, I've been working on a screenplay about the rise and fall of a boy inside of the social media landscape. And I couldn't think of someone better to talk to than my buddy Austin Visschedyk, who at the early age of 11 started becoming a pretty profound paparazzi photographer. Some of you might know Austin from the documentary that was made by Adrian Grenier, starring Austin, about him, called Childhood Paparazzi. The film came out in 2010 and followed him on his photography escapades and documented him documenting this moment in pop culture that's pretty much unforgettable. Our interview covers a lot of ground. I'm really fascinated with this time when movie stars became backseat to reality stars and how famous for doing nothing kind of takes over the old Hollywood administration. And I went back to talk to Austin to try to understand for myself how Robertson Boulevard went from thousands upon thousands of paparazzi and looking like Cannes Film Festival all the way to like 10 photographers on the streets. And that's the birth of social media, the celebrities documenting themselves. We discuss everything from Britney Spears, Paris Hilton, Lindsay Lohan, Michael Jackson, and even the death of Princess Diana, how the model went from where it was to where it is now. He also gave me insights that I couldn't even understand about how the media landscape hasn't changed that much. It's just kind of stopped documenting the Parises and the Kardashians and more into current administration and our politics and fake news and how the media is running it through, the CNNs and Foxes of the world, which is fascinating too. So without further delay, I hope you enjoy our conversation. This is Austin. How do you say your last name?
Visschedyk.
What does that mean?
It's Dutch. It's fisherman of the dike.
What's the
comes
background
from.
of a name like that?
My grandfather, all my relatives were born in Holland, in Maastricht. And at one point, I guess my family was into fishing. And they lived at the dike.
Jeez. How long have you been shooting photos?
I think there's photos of me as a child, back 3-4 years old, taking a picture without a camera, just holding up a frame. And it's so interesting because I look back at that photo and I can't even remember that. But seeing that kind of makes me think that
there's something deep in you.
Yeah.
You were like signaling an invisible camera.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So wait, when did you actually shoot non-invisible cameras? How old were you when you really shot a photo?
When I really started shooting, I think I was like 11, maybe 10, maybe earlier.
Why so young? It's amazing.
I don't know. I just always kind of gravitated towards a camera. I guess as something my dad once said, or said many times actually, a photographer is just a pervert looking at life through a peephole, which I always thought was interesting.
That's a funny beginning.
What he thought of his father, I guess.
There you go, right? There's always so many things revealed in photos that aren't necessarily spoken, like that example.
Yeah, well, I think that just as a photographer, that is your outlet,
Right.
Your expression.
What did you start shooting? What were you shooting when you were then?
I really was interested in just shooting nature, not necessarily people or objects, but mainly flowers and still life. Yeah, cacti and just random things that I saw patterns in and different things that I just found interesting, I guess.
And that's where you kind of mastered knowing what a f-stop and all the nonsense.
Yeah.
Okay. And then when did people come into it?
People came into it, I think I was about 12, and my mom frequented all these different, I guess, beauty-fying places in, West Hollywood, Beverly Hills. She'd go to, like, Canara Spa, and she'd go to Portofino for the spray tan, so I was always kind of around. And one day she called me, and she said, you should come over to this, I forgot what the name of it was, but it was in the back of the alley on Melrose Place, where Alfred's is now.
Yeah.
And it was she said, come over, Paris Hilton's here. You should come and say hi. I was always kind of introducing myself to people.
Her, or
no,
she
not
just
at all.
saw her on the street.
Just saw her inside of this boutique.
Is this when she's the massive star or not yet?
This is right at the beginning. It was right after she had done the show with Nicole Richie,
Okay.
A Simple Life.
She was on her way.
So
but she wasn't like Empire
She
yet.
wasn't Empire yet.
Yeah.
She wasn't like clothing brand. She wasn't there
Yeah.
yet. So I got there and I immediately asked for her number. I was like, "Hey, my name's Austin. Like, can we go to dinner?" And I think
How
she
old
said,
are you?
I was 12.
And you're like, give me your number.
Yeah.
How old is she? 17, 18?
No, she must
20?
have been early 20s, maybe 22, 23.
Okay.
And she said that her boyfriend wouldn't like that very much. So I said, okay, fine, nice to meet you. And I think she signed something for me. I forget.
That's
Just like
so
a piece
funny.
Of paper or
No
something.
no photo.
No photo. So, but she said, I won't give you my number, but you can walk out with me.
Uh-huh.
So for the first time, I was introduced to this crazy world of walking down these steps and having 60 guys
So
going crazy.
Paparazzi is
it was
vibrant.
just animals. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was just like this appealing thing to me. And I'd never seen it before, and it was very attracting,
You wanted to do paparazzi.
It
Or you
wasn't
just liked
necessarily the
whole-
paparazzi, it was just the scene.
Mhm.
Just like for her it was what it was for her.
It was insane.
It was insane. It
Yeah.
was gratifying. It was all these things that like summed up to just being fun as a 12-year-old, I was in a place where, I saw this and I immediately just said to my mother, please get me a camera, and she did. She was always very supportive in that sense.
Did you walk away from the Paris thing wishing you had a camera for like the moment or no?
Well, yeah, but I think the next day I went to Sammy's and bought, I think it was a Nikon D40 was my first digital camera.
Right.
And I used that camera to photograph probably the first, 10% of who I shot.
Uh-huh. That's always I remember I had a Canon AE1 and I shot 5 years of my career on this little 35 millimeter my dad had won in like a wine selling contest. Everyone's like, "What's your camera?" Like Seal. He was like, "You have to have some crazy camera." I'm like, "No, it's a Canon AE1." And he always thought I was lying. He always thought that the camera made the image.
Yeah.
He's like,
Has
"What
nothing to do
technology
with
are you
it."
using?" I'm like, "A camera my dad
Just
gave
a
me."
tool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when does it go from that incident to you becoming kind of a vibrant photographer? Is there a journey? Is it a long thing?
It all happened so fast. It was within the first 2 or 3 days, I had already contacted with a few people, one of them being Adrian Grenier from Entourage, who I ended up doing a film with. And it was really interesting because in the first week, I had grown up going to school, like listening to Ryan Seacrest, for instance.
Where, like a podcast or on
No,
radio?
on the radio. So every morning it would be like 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning. I'd be going to school, and he'd be on the radio. So to him, I was very familiar with him, just in that sense, not on a personal level, but
right, like current pop culture was being discussed.
yeah. So I saw him out. I think he was at Koi. And we photographed him, and this was probably my 5th or 6th day, shooting. And I gave him my card, and he was like, I'm gonna call you, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, sure. I think he was with Jasmine Waltz at the time.
That's so random.
And
But wait, back up. You go to Sammy's, you get a camera, you make cards, and then you just go to Koi. That someone tipped you about Koi, or you just waited there for something to happen?
I just stood outside.
Solo or
Just
with
solo.
a group?
Solo. I just took my scooter. I think I had at the time, it was like a push scooter, like a Razor or something like
With
that.
no engine.
With no engine, nothing like that.
And like a backpack with a
And
camera.
a backpack, camera, hat, and I was just, ready to go.
And you're 12 or 13?
I was 12, yeah.
12.
And I frequented the first restaurant I took a photo at was actually Adrian, and I frequented this restaurant. It was called Dugarango.
Mm-hmm.
My mother and I would go there, 2 nights a week. They had amazing chicken. It was this guy from Palm Springs, I think. And I gave her my card, I think the first night I got my cards, and I said, call me. And she called me that night, and I came back and took the photo
Who
of
was she?
Adrian. She was just a waitress.
hostess?
A waitress at the
Did you know that was the system, or did you just
No,
you were just being
I was just being genuine.
like an aggressive kid?
Yeah, no, I was just being genuine. I was like, if you see anybody, let
If
me know.
you see anyone, call me.
Yeah.
And that's like the whole system is the tip off from like the internal.
I think it really comes from that. I mean, later on down the line, it does. But
at first, you're just like, here's my card. That's great. So she's like, Ryan's here.
Yeah. Well, basically, but Ryan was at Coy.
Okay.
So I was standing outside. This was 2 nights after I shot Adrian.
Okay.
So I'm standing outside, and I give him the card, and he goes, I'll call you, Bubba. So I usually go to bed at 3, 4 in the morning.
You're like
so
nocturnal.
That night, I probably went to bed at, 3 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
So I get a call at 6:30
A.M.
a.m.
Okay.
The next morning, the following morning. And it's Ryan Seacrest's show, and they're wanting to know if I will go on in 10 minutes. And I'm like,
Wow.
What's going on?
Right.
So I was like, okay, yeah, sure. And they asked me my story, and I told them I was excited about it. And then from then on, it was just kind of a roller coaster of...
That's the beginning.
Yeah.
Adrian shot, Ryan Seacrest shot, and then that's when things just get into high speed.
Yeah.
And are you able to still go to school when you start going? Because you were everywhere.
Well, I just didn't really go to school. I ended up getting homeschooled and,
that's
and putting
interesting.
on a system because I couldn't, the hours and...
How old were you when homeschooling starts?
13.
Right. And you're shooting 7 nights a week pretty much.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And daytime too, but I always like the nighttime. I was so immersed with it. It was so exciting and so new.
And your mom was cool, or she was getting worried, like, this is going crazy?
My mom, I think, for the most part, always trusted me to do the right thing.
Right.
And to not put myself in a bad place. I think she realized after however many years that I didn't really need
that supervision. You were better on your own.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I always figured it out, and I really never got into that much trouble. I had I had a lot of people around me that were protecting me. And
the other paparazzi would look out for you?
Oh, absolutely.
Who was like the coolest one?
There's a few people. The Brazilian community was really harsh, but I ended up I think going to school...
Let's wait for just backing up. What's the Brazilian community? They came from Brazil to do paparazzi?
Yeah, so there was a company called X17, and they really flooded the market with bringing in, majority of them illegal. At the time, that wasn't what we were thinking about because we were at war.
Sure.
And immigration wasn't a big deal, so they, all these
Who's
people
president
came over.
during this
Bush.
moment? First term or second term?
I think second term.
Okay. So the Brazilians were aggressive.
So they were brought over by this company, X17, and they really were aggressive. They'd slash your tires. They'd break your arm.
Anything to get the shot.
Well, these guys, they were sitting on, say, Britney Spears.
Right.
So X17 would put 5 guys from X17 on Britney.
What is on? Like in front of the house?
In front of the house.
And by the cars, anywhere she's going?
24/7. She's getting followed.
Are they hacking
everywhere.
phones and shit? Or not that deep?
No. It was just aggressive following, maneuvering, cutting people off, blocking people. They would run people off the road who were on motorcycles that were trying to get a photo because these photos at that time were worth so much money.
Got it.
Some of these guys were making $60,000, $70,000 a month.
That's crazy.
So to them,
it's like you're really messing with my income and my food and my family. How do the other guys, like Woody is an old school guy, right? How does he tolerate that?
Woody, he always just was very kind and polite and always got what he wanted out of it. He wasn't, I think, too aggressive ever from what I saw. And I think he I think held a good reputation.
Even the Brazilians knew who he was and not to really be in his way?
Yeah.
How come when I think of paparazzi, I think of him? Why? Because he was everywhere? Because he was one
long-term,
what was
first
it? He's first.
People in it. Him, there's a few people, Brad Elterman started doing, basically, he can say it was, stage photography or band photography, whatever it was, but he was one of the first paps out there. There's certain people that, I never really harassed anybody. I didn't really...
You have your own dynamic. You're what, 20 years younger than anyone out there?
Pretty much.
Was anyone young?
There was a few people that were 20, 22.
Did like people imitate you because you were young? Like, I'm gonna have my kid go.
Well, yeah, no, there was a few people, but I don't think anybody was in the position I was. You know, I had a strange in to all of this.
Is that business carding?
Yeah.
You had Paris and Ryan, who are probably the main heartbeat of the whole society at the time.
It's true. It's
right?
true. Yeah.
So when does it go? I guess. What do you remember from the beginnings in that sticks
I just
out in your
remember
head?
having fun. I mean, there was a few instances, run-ins, just being able to do whatever you wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Because at that time, that was everything. Celebrity, pop culture, that was what everybody was seeing. It's like, to refer to something
it's
right
just
now,
different.
it's like Trump in the news.
Yeah.
Was how much celebrities were in the news. Every TV show was about how much money you had, what kind of car you had, your lifestyle, and that was just what it was about.
Were you kind of unknowingly sucked in, or did you have a perspective like, this is fucking weird and I'm gonna take pictures of it? Or did you go like, I want to be that too?
I never wanted to be that.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up having a different outlook on it. I was never too aggressive because I knew that just if I just said hello, I would delete a photo of somebody and the next time they'd give me a great photo. So I kind of kept
Kindness
this
and
reputation.
honesty.
Yeah, that's what it was about.
All right. So during this time, what goes on between 13 and 15? Like,
So we're going to go back. So Ryan Seacrest happens.
yes.
All this happens. I'm on the radio. Then I get a call from like Larry King. And then The View, and then 2020. And all these different outlets just kind of wanting a piece of my story. So I did it all and kind of got some momentum in that career. At the same time, Adrian Grenier, who I met on the first week of me shooting, called me a few weeks later. And as all this is happening, he pitched an idea to make a documentary about my life and pop culture and,
What's that called? I've seen it.
it's a Teenage Paparazzo.
Yes.
So we shot that, and we're shooting this as I'm doing all of this press.
Uh-huh.
And we don't really know where it's going. He was with us, I would say, 80% of the time.
That's a lot.
He really wanted to be hands-on in the sense of, getting the story and getting what he wanted out of it, and what he felt like he needed to make something. I think he had done one other documentary
About adoption. Yeah.
his mother.
I met him
and
then.
Going
Yeah.
back into, that part of his life. And I was so new to all of this. I never wanted fame,
Right.
and I knew what I was doing wouldn't have maybe portrayed me in the best light.
The documentary?
That was always on my mind.
Uh-huh. Did you feel like you were being exploited, like in the doc?
I didn't, because I didn't really try to think about it at all.
You were just going from branch to branch, flow to...
I was
it was
just
happening
doing my
too fast,
thing.
right?
Yeah. So I was never trying to put on a persona of anybody. I was just me.
Right.
So if you wanted to film me doing whatever, go ahead.
Larry King, did you do an interview with him?
I did an interview with Larry. It's a funny story because I went into the CNN building and Larry King was actually, I forgot where he was. He was doing a piece somewhere on somebody. And they had replaced him with Kathy Griffin.
That's a big change.
And I'm like 13, 14, and she always kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
She's got a lot of animated fake energy, right? It's
and
like show business.
I don't like that bullshit.
Yeah.
No one see
does.
right through it. I can, I think being a native from here, you can look at somebody coming through the door and just automatically just...
It's like a celebrity sociopath.
Yeah. And she did not like me at all, and I wasn't giving in to any of her bullshit,
right?
And she fucking hated me. She
That's
wanted me
funny.
out of there so
You're a
fast.
little kid.
I know, but there was so much. It wasn't even competition. It was just so like animosity. It was just strange. It was a very weird dynamic, and I walked out of there laughing. Like I always do. Like
Sure.
I don't care.
You felt like you got her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
did they run it?
I think they did. I would like to find that interview.
That's
somewhere.
funny. And you're on cameras. It's not just recorded.
I'm
It's
on
like
camera,
you
yeah.
shot.
Yeah.
You're in the studio.
Yeah.
Were you rocking your hat and just being...
Well, I was rocking my hat, but I was also like at that time going through puberty, and it was interesting because I was like, I had pimples on my face and I looked like a fucking idiot. I had a weird haircut, and I didn't care. It just went with it, And it's interesting to have all of that document. If I got one thing out of doing all of that,
You want that interview?
No, but it was having the documentation of everything.
Sure.
Including that.
Have you ever gone back and gotten any of it or no?
It's a part of my life that feels like a lifetime ago.
I bet.
And where I'm at right now, it's hard to focus on anything but what
I can't even
want.
think of you in that light. Like, I don't even know that person, which is interesting.
It's funny because I look back and I don't even know that person.
Well, you were so young, you didn't know. So this is all happening. This is the most powerful years of it's between, 12 and 16?
Those were and when I hit 16, the doc came out. I'd done everything I wanted. I actually had a few production companies in the works to do a reality show with me. We were working with like World of Wonder and MTV and all these different...
It's crazy. How much money are you making when you're that young?
On average, I was making like $3,000 or $4,000 a picture.
That's crazy.
Sometimes it went up to $60,000, $70,000.
And what are you doing with dough? Are you saving it? Are you putting it away? Or are you living crazy?
I was having fun.
Just having fun. Did you buy stuff? Did you buy
Well, I bought like a few cars.
Uh-huh. You couldn't drive though, right?
Yeah,
legally.
I hired a driver to drive the car that I got.
No way.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
His name was Jerry Piscor. He was actually, my mom used to hire him to drive me to school because I got kicked out of a few schools and ended up going to the Palisades.
That's so amazing. So you got a driver and you got your gear and you're living large.
Yeah, I'm doing what I want. I'm eating. I'm, living. Taking people
Did you have a
out.
girlfriend then or no?
I did. No, I didn't. I didn't really have a steady girlfriend up until I was like
You didn't have
17,
time.
18. I literally had no time for friends, for anybody. I was just working.
And who out of this is an interesting part to me, is like who out of all that, because I think in my own career, who do you become friends with that you're shooting? Because that's such a weird dynamic.
There was a few people that I got close to.
Mm-hmm.
Adrian, obviously, because I was spending so much time with him. He introduced me really, instead of, on a different level, to a few people that I'm still very close to, people in his career and people who he was working with at the time. There's a few people that, they needed somebody around, and me being an innocent 15-year-old wasn't threatening to them. It wasn't,
Who were the biggest stories, the biggest documented at the times of your...
I mean, I was around for so long. It was like, Britney shaving her head.
Yes. Lindsay in Paris.
Lindsay in Paris.
Then what follows Lindsay in Paris?
It was really them for a long time.
Oh, a really long time.
I followed Lindsay and formed some kind of relationship with her for like a year and a half. It was always... her calling me, her wanting me around, because I would block people. I would stop in alleys and not let people go, and she would just drift off.
She's nice.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Her in Paris, I've always thought her just nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nice.
Uncomfortably nice. It's weird how adjusted, and I always felt like they were just nice people.
Yeah,
in
they
a
know how to make
weird
people feel
whirlwind.
comfortable in like a strange setting.
Yeah.
because they're somewhat comfortable.
It's strange. And then who follows them that you remember? And that's towards when you're exiting, right?
That was really when I was exiting, when, there was a few instances that happened, the last things I remember were, I think Lindsay hit a baby stroller one time. That was big news in a car. But
you were there on the scene?
I was there, and it all got, covered up because the people who were working on her weren't after her like that anymore. It was a very, platonic, cool relationship that the photographers had with her, and I think that's how you have to get, if you want yourself in that limelight. There's a lot of people that don't want to be photographed, and they will never be photographed.
Right.
They live their lives. They have.
Who was the most difficult?
Oh,
like Nicholson, stuff like that.
I never really photographed anybody that I knew didn't want to get photographed.
Uh-huh.
I was always where people, wanted to walk out and get seen and get noticed. It wasn't about sitting in a car trying to get a photo of
But there
somebody's
is
kids.
people that hated and would do anything, right? Wasn't there famous people that everyone would know?
I mean, there were gangsters gangbangers, shooting.
That didn't want photos.
No. That would go after and try to get whatever photo they could.
Ah.
So, at the same time, there's so many people that gave a bad name to doing that.
Sure.
At one point, it was a reputable relationship between the press, the people taking the photos, and the celebrity and their, community of people behind them.
Uh-huh.
And at one point, it just got out of control.
Dark.
There was a line that was crossed, and it just never went back.
Just got worse. Was Diana's incident in there? Or is that prior or before, after?
That moment probably changed. I mean, there was a lot of dynamics of that.
It was
accident.
building up. That was like a pinnacle.
Yeah. And I think that just the fact that they were there and the fact that there were photos that came out of her, they never really came out, but
Right. Years later, they did.
Yeah. But
Guilty by association.
There was a few people there that I actually know. So I've had this conversation in detail with, those people.
My curiosity is when does it turn to... I used to go down Robertson, and Paris would have... It looked like Cannes Film Festival following her. And then I would go, and it would be thinner and thinner and thinner. What years and why is that happening? Is it because... My theory is that they start shooting themselves on Twitter... And then what's the first thing? Twitter is the first step?
No, I mean, the whole progression of social media in general, from MySpace, which is what I was brought up on.
That's right. Friendster, MySpace.
And then Facebook, and then Instagram. I was never really a big Twitter. I didn't like that.
I'm just wondering where they start documenting themselves and knocking photos from $5,000 to $5. Where is that?
When people could get the instant gratification of being there in the moment and not having to actually be there is when that changed. People would follow, they would go out, they would stand outside, all these things to meet people, but now you could just look at your phone and be there instantly. And I think them posting photos of their home lives was so much more personal than getting photographed on the street. But up until that point, that didn't exist. That would be a photographer having a show of him following somebody, for a week or two, and getting personal with them. Right. That was the closest thing to doing that, and going and.
Did you do that with certain artists? Did you stay with them and start helping them document themselves?
A few people, and that's something that I think I've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
And now I started a production company, and now I get the chance to actually, document them. And I think photo can only.
I want to get into
so
where
far.
you're at, that stuff, but
let's go back to.
Yeah, like Jackson, my favorite shit ever. What's the first time you see him?
Who?
Michael. That was my favorite. I like
Michael
that photo
Jackson.
you took.
Somebody called me, and this is when Ed Hardy was booming. He was a huge sponsor. He was head to toe Ed Hardy all the time.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
He wanted him and his kids. He loved the
Ed Hardy
colors and the artwork and all of that.
Is Ed Hardy on Melrose then, or is that
this is when
flagship?
It's on Melrose. This is next to the gas station right there. And I ended up seeing him drive by. I jumped out of whoever's car I was in, and I just ran in front. I was pretty small at that time, so I could kind of weasel my way through.
Yeah, they didn't even see you cross the front of the car, probably.
No. And I didn't really get in front of anybody, so nobody cared. They just shot over my head. And I shot a bunch of frames of him, and then we ended up shooting him for 15, 20 minutes at that store. He ended up going to a vintage collective store that's next to Platinum Motorsports.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, we shot him there for.
Was it just chaos?
He gave it up. Yeah, but I mean, it was easy because I think he at that time, had so much experience moving through a crowd. It was very.
He's a pro.
It was like water, you just flow. It was never.
Was it something you hadn't seen before, like a new level of?
I think so.
Movement.
Yeah.
He's the king.
Always was just like stepping backwards and hoping that you're not going to trip on somebody, or hoping somebody doesn't fucking pull you to the ground. That's
how much people just crazy scurry.
Just crazy.
Yeah. Was it the most you ever seen? Was there a person you remember going, "This is insane"?
There was a few times. It must have been Britney Spears on Robertson one time.
Yeah.
Was like in the back alley and then the front end. She would just do weird shit. She's drive to the front, drive to the back, get out, run through the just do.
Was she just
run
mental?
around the block. Just
Or she was trying to hide.
no, she was just having fun. She was just having fun with it. What else can you do? Laugh
Right.
at it and fuck with the same people that it's just a game at that point. And they were in it.
What in your mind is the end? What is the end for when that conversion happens? The social media, the personalized shooting at home. When does it make the Robertson Boulevard not have 1,000 people following a person?
I think probably Twitter, because more people probably gravitated towards what they were saying
Mm-hmm.
and not what they were doing. They felt a closer connection to them.
To the words as opposed to the image?
I think to the words, yeah. And then when the images, I think images were incorporated in Twitter, but it was much more about what people had to say. And then from there, a lot of the magazines and tabloids moved to online blogs. So they were stealing photos from every which place.
Is this not Jared, but what was the other guy's name?
Perez Hilton?
Perez Hilton, is he the beginning of that?
He was, I think, one of the pioneers.
Consolidating.
In doing that and bringing everybody to one place instead of going to the store and buying 12 magazines,
Got it.
And at that point, you really saw a decrease in the amount of money you were making.
Right.
Because a magazine that was, making, had all of these subscribers was now dying because of, online content. So a photo that
They
was
can't
selling
keep
for
up too, right? It's
$5,000
all
was
about
selling for
immediacy.
$300.
Everything's now.
The faster it is, the better for the...
How old are you when you're waking up in this going, you know what, this isn't the dough it used to be? Or are you still having fun with it? Or what are you going through?
I think before the money, I was raised pretty well. I had a good childhood. My parents worked hard for what they have.
You're making more than any kid I know, though.
I
is
was
crazy.
making a lot. The people, the kids that were making as much as me at that time were probably like the stars on Disney. They were, they were...
Yeah, CW and all that.
Yeah.
They're acting,
Nickelodeon.
working
And
actors.
they're acting, yeah.
And you're getting it from it's interesting because
Other
both sides
end.
are making money.
Oh, yeah.
And then all of a sudden one side isn't. That's what I want to understand is like, when do you start seeing signs of it's not a collapse, but it's a fade out? What is your fade out like? What do you...
When I was 15, 16, the movie came out.
Uh-huh.
I had rejected all of the offers from all of these networks.
Reality shows and whatnot?
Shows, because I didn't want that for my life.
Would they want to just take the doc and keep it going? Like,
Basically,
do
they
episodes?
they wanted to film me every single day. They wanted to film drama. I mean, it was like a whole thing, and I just wasn't into it. The money, whatever, I didn't give a fuck. It wasn't my, motive.
Sure.
And I walked away from that. It really impacted my relationship with a few people because they would have made money on it, and lost.
So people had a stake in you doing it.
Yeah.
And then when you didn't, they started to get disconnected from you.
Definitely.
Right.
Definitely. Overnight, I saw an impact in the relationship.
Yeah.
And it sucked because, when it came down to the friendship or the money came first, and it's a lot of the time that's how it is.
Yeah. And that's not the way you're brought up or
It's
the way
not
you are.
how I was brought up. I walked away. Never sued anybody. It wasn't that wasn't my thing. And after that, I realized that I didn't really want to get into it, stay in it. And at one point, I just stopped. And the money, I think, started impacting people after that. I got residual checks, for a long, long time from different companies.
Did you start shooting on your own accord, or did you just put the camera down and take a vacation from that?
I think I stopped doing that. I think I traded in a few of my DSLR cameras I think I picked up like an M8 and M9, some lenses, like a bunch of Leica stuff, and got into just more portrait shooting.
Like at your house?
At my house, wherever. I just travel. I traveled
Was it
a lot.
conscious, or did it just start happening? Or did you say, I'm not doing that, I'm doing this? Or was it all naturally flowing?
I think it was just natural.
Mm-hmm.
It just, one led to another.
Mm-hmm.
There was no, I'm going to stop doing this. It was just, I just faded out.
Did you ever go, fuck, I missed making this much dough, or you didn't care about that?
No, the money was never really anything.
It wasn't the driving force.
No,
You just
definitely
like the whole explosion
when
of a lifestyle.
the passion kind of ended.
Yeah.
As soon as the passion is, bye.
Don't you kind of go from a place where you're documenting it and then becoming it? Did that happen? Where all of a sudden you wake up and you're on the other side of, like, what's that like? You're an outsider, and then you're kind of allowed around. Then you're on the other side of the camera, in a sense.
I was comfortable in front of the camera because I didn't have a persona that I was trying to proceed, so I never was like checking the footage and making sure that I was this or that. Whatever happened with the footage, that happened with the footage. Whoever I was on camera, that's just, who I was at that moment. Mm-hmm. And I didn't like the attention as much as I probably thought I would.
You were more comfortable documenting than being documented.
Once I saw everything come out, I probably didn't judge myself, but I judged maybe the choice that I made to do all of that. But it was a learning experience, and I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy that I did it because, now I'm in a place where I really took myself out of all that and have become a different person. And now I'm back to being behind the camera.
No, I see what you're doing now. I'm still excited about, like, tell me when you're kind of in a lifestyle that you once documented. How long does that last? That you're just like you're having the party and then you are the party.
Probably like 2 years.
That's quick.
Yeah, 3 years.
Yeah.
Well, because I didn't want it. I didn't, chase it. I just tried to end it as soon as possible.
Yeah.
I wanted that part of my life to be over. And it was. I faded it out and it was great.
That's awesome. So now let's talk about now. Now you're thinking of starting a company that does... I recently started a production company with a partner of mine, Ben Brett. It's called Savage Global Productions. We're doing commercial work. Why Savage?
I don't know, because I always like the name.
Yeah.
I just like, the chaos.
You have a lot of gear.
Yeah, I love the gear. That
You're
was always a big
buying
part
a camera. Every time I see you, you're buying another camera or a lens or a Springer van or something. What's going on?
It takes some work to start a production company. We got a van. We have all the equipment and all that. But it's fun. It's nice to be back behind the camera doing something I really enjoy.
Yeah, you have like a whole new perspective. Like not one bit the same, right?
Not at all.
You kind of shook probably everything you don't like, took some time away, and then you come back with what you exactly like.
Well, it was such a fast-paced lifestyle. You only had 10 seconds to get the shot. You're waiting 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah.
Now I'm setting up the shot for 4 or 5 hours and shooting for 10 minutes.
It's amazing.
It's just the flip side.
It's reverse engineered.
Yeah.
That's funny. It's interesting now that it seems to be like a bunch of people hiding in their house documenting some false reality. I mean, what do you think of current social? What do you think of it?
What? The
current social media scape
right
today in 2018 of like documenting themselves chewing food and like, here's me eating a sandwich and I'm cool.
I think if it takes that to control the population and it really just keeps everybody dumb. You scrolling on your phone and seeing an image for a quarter of a second and keeps going. Your brain can't process that.
Yeah,
it's just.
What do you think's going to happen? Say like you saw what happened with paparazzi going social.
Yeah.
Now we're in a feverish social where I can't see how much further it can go.
Well, I think it just evolves and kind of rotates every, I guess, decade maybe.
Yeah, I'm wondering what's going to make Instagram Friendster.
Well, now I think we're at a time where we're talking about political agendas and we're talking about race and we're talking about equality and we're talking about sexism.
So the cycle just changes, but it's
just
still
went from celebrity to this, but it's still on something.
Yeah,
it's just what is it going to be on next?
Right. What follows Trumpian? The Trumpian society.
People must be. They are. They're so sick of. That's all you hear.
Yeah. It's a lot of negative energy, which is interesting. I don't know what the next cycle is. But it seems like they all push too intensely in an agenda or another. I don't know. It's weird. I'm curious to see what
It's always
follows.
the extreme.
Yeah,
You have to
I
go
feel
to
like
the
we're in a
extreme
car going like 700 miles an hour towards
when are
a
we
wall,
crashing?
and I want to know what the wall is.
Yeah.
Because the wall keeps reinventing itself and distancing
Just
away.
never comes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish I knew. I guess that's the $1 trillion question.
Yeah, if you can
Yeah.
profit on what's next.
I don't know I don't know where conversion lies anymore with like being the social celebrity.
But do you think it's going to go back to a time where it's just going to all fry itself out and everybody's just going to be loving and life's going to be about fucking sex, drugs, and rock and roll?
Maybe. I feel like kids
have to go to that.
I feel like younger kids are going to start going, why are my parents documenting themselves like eating a cheeseburger?
Do you think it's going to push them away from it?
I think it might be it. I think it might go back to like the kids
so you think
being
the older generation is going to push the younger generation into...
Yeah, because as a younger person, you always hate what your dad's doing. If your dad's documenting himself, like going out
cleaning
and doing
his bike and like,
right, then they're gonna say, "Why don't I Bob Dylan this and do no disclosure, no interviews,
be secretive.
no visuals, and I'm cool as fuck."
And solo, yeah.
I don't know. It could be way wrong.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's a few kids that are not about it. Like
20 what?
The modern
20, 24, 25?
What,
when
kids
are we
now?
talking about? No, yeah, when is
No, I'm
this
talking
gonna
about kids that
happen?
are like 10 or 12, like your age when you started now. I definitely won't be repeating what their parents do because that would be so out of touch. I assume. Because I think each generation fucking hates what their family did.
Yeah.
You know? Like I didn't want to listen to my
Any of the
parents'
music
music.
or-
I didn't want to watch my parents' films.
But you were a rebel, weren't you?
I mean, we all are,
Yeah,
or
I
else we
guess so.
wouldn't have got into entertainment and
Yeah.
this nonsense world.
That we
So
live
what
in.
now? Now you're doing a production company.
Production company, commercials, some music video, which I don't really enjoy. It's too quick. I like, a little more time into a project. A few documentaries. Yeah. Just having fun with it.
Make films.
Yeah.
Where does stills live in your life now?
Stills live in my life, I don't know, running through frames from one of my cameras and grabbing a still. Taking photos, and I don't really necessarily like taking photos with my phone. It's very awkward.
I'm
for
the
me.
worst at it. Everyone always goes, "Give him the phone. He's a
hate
photographer,"
that-
and
no,
I'm
I
probably
said,
the
I'm
worst
sorry, I
iPhone shooter in
can't.
the world. Yeah, everything's always wrong. It's funny
know,
too.
and girls
Yeah.
are like, "What is this?" I'm
Yeah.
like, "I don't know."
It doesn't matter if it's like a random family at like a theme park. They always look at it and you could tell they're
okay.
tremendously disappointed, but
Uh-huh.
they just leave me alone.
Yeah, yeah. I ended up just holding the button down in burst mode and just taking 5,000 and giving them the phone and
That's
saying,
smart.
take it.
Yeah, then they can be confused while you walk away.
Why they're now having to look through 100 photos?
Are you ever going to do a show with all the stuff you've shot? Because, I mean, you don't really share a lot of it.
I don't. I think.
I had to, like, go deep into you to find the Michael Jackson photo I want for my world.
Yeah, there's I spent a year ago. I spent about a week on my computer, not leaving for like 18 hours a day,
Wow.
basically sorting through all of these photos.
It's weird, right?
I've lost a lot of them. A lot of them have been corrupted. I've had hard drives go bad in a time where hard drives weren't in a stable place.
Yeah, no, I've
This
had
is,
that. They look like half digital or
Yeah.
weird art.
But this is that generation was one of the booming generations for electronic cameras and digital DSLRs.
so it's still figuring itself out.
It really was. And
Did
I
you
lost
shoot
a lot.
any film back then or none?
I didn't. I never shot film. I have a ton of film cameras, box cameras, slide cameras from my grandfather.
But it wouldn't be cohesive to that lifestyle.
No.
It's not fast enough.
No. It was about getting as many.
One day
frames
will
as
you
I-
show some of it, whatever you found?
I think one day. Yeah.
I want to see it.
Yeah. I think that would be a show and a book is something, or a few that I would want to do. Something to keep.
Well, good luck with this new company, man.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, it's exciting to start something new.
It is. It's another
Is there any
journey.
dream you got for the year?
I think just shoot is, I want to shoot. There's a few projects that I want to start myself.
Mm-hmm.
Getting those off the ground is probably one of my benchmarks for the year. But yeah, just staying busy and shooting and enjoying life and spending time with friends and family and
Becoming a human?
Yeah.
You kind of missed your childhood.
oh yeah,
Right?
I mean, just being able to do what you want.
Yeah, but you were like, when most kids were like, I don't know, learning how to fucking do something, you were already in a career.
Yeah, it
That's
was interesting.
interesting, yeah.
It was
So
fun.
now maybe you'll be a kid now.
Maybe I'll finally get the chance to.
All right, let's catch up soon, man. Great talking to you.
Nice talking to you too.
There you have it. That was my interview with Austin. We had a lot of fun afterwards. We went on a long motorcycle ride and caught up. We hadn't seen each other in a minute. Kind of went riding around where we talked about, and it's still a ghost town, that Robertson. It's very interesting. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back with some more soon. I don't know if we'll have a playlist or an interview, but we're working it out as we go. Thanks for your time. I hope you have a wonderful day. And that's it. Episode 3 of The Love Show. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.